Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning for this session from Steltix and Oracle to explore more about Oracle Guided Learning for JD Edwards. I'm Stuart Johnson, the Solution Director at Steltix UK, and I'm also joined today by my colleague from Steltix, Dan Smith, who's the Global Product Director for Oracle Guided Learning for JD Edwards here at Steltix. Here's a brief overview of the agenda for today's session. So we're going to go through some brief introductions and then with some input from colleagues at Oracle, then we're going to be looking at the training and adoption revolution and then get into the bones of the session today, which is looking at Oracle Guided Learning itself and having a solution demonstration. So yeah, a big thank you to Oracle for our long-standing partnership for Oracle Guided Learning for JD Edwards, OGL for JDE. And for co-presenting with us today on today's webinar. As mentioned, it's myself and Dan from Steltix, so we're also delighted to welcome Trad Hughes and Adam Tanner and Alan McLeod from Oracle Customer Success Services and Oracle Applications Unlimited, who will also be presenting with us in the session today. So really, to set the scene for today's session, if you remember traveling when all we had was paper maps, used to be taking wrong turns, running into roadworks, getting stressed, you'll recognize the theme for today's session. And really that's how users feel when a new system release drops or a new orchestration is added to the system, or there's a policy change or a release update. They can't really pause for days of training, and confidence drops really fast in their use of the system. So today we all use GPS or sat navs on our phones. It knows where we are and it contextually guides us to the exact destination. So that's really where OGL for JDE comes in. It provides us a contextual GPS for JDE, turn by turn on-screen guidance in the flow of work, so users can really succeed from day one. Behind the scenes as well, there's live analytics to show change and training teams who's adopting what, where there are drop-offs that happen, and where to improve content. So really gives you that 360 overview of how the system is being used by your users. And another headline up front is that many organizations still may be paying for UPK support for JDE. So today you'll see the ability to move your UPK to Oracle Guided Learning for JD Edwards. So we'll show that pathway. If you do purchase Oracle Guided Learning for JDE, Oracle removes the UPK support fees, and Steltix can show you how to migrate that content. So you can really jumpstart you with any pre-written JD Edwards guides and help you to run enterprise content management, so you can keep up to date with quarterly releases, UDO changes, orchestrations, and new AI features. So we're going to cover why OGL for JDE is changing that game, give you an opportunity to see a live demo of that GPS on the JD Edwards screens themselves, and also how to review those analytics and outcomes and walk through that UPK migration opportunity, with sharing some customer proof points as well on the way. As I said, please use the question and answers at any time. We'll leave some space at the end to answer those questions. With that, it's a pleasure to introduce Alan McLeod from Oracle Applications Unlimited team. So Alan, it's over to you.
It's a real pleasure to be a part of this topic today with you and to discuss JD Edwards and Oracle Guided Learning. As we all know, or you will know by now, JD Edwards is what we call a continuous innovation product at Oracle. And that means that Oracle is going to continue to invest in JD Edwards development, security, and innovation. And our development team released these enhancements on a continuous quarterly release program. And that's been instrumental for allowing us to drive innovation in an iterative way, but also allowing our customers to embrace JD Edwards innovation in a more agile way. And this ongoing evolution is going to be something that we'll continue with strategically into the future. And this strategy allows our users to embrace new capabilities like the likes of orchestrating, which enables them to streamline and automate processes within their business. And it's not only these capabilities that allow you to improve your efficiencies, it also allows you to create a culture of faster innovation, adoption, agility, and adaptability. But what we've observed a lot in businesses that we've seen is that whilst our pace has been pretty relentless, sometimes and very often we encounter businesses that have kept with the same way of doing things as they have done in the last several years, 5 years, 10 years, even 15. And people have learned a particular way of working with their systems, and sticking with the analogy of using a map, using the same roads to go to their destination day in, day out. And they may have learned that route by having somebody before them pass that knowledge on to them. And when new roads or new pathways get introduced, they still think that getting stuck in traffic each day is the only way to get to their destination. With Oracle's consistent pace of these quarterly releases, a fresh approach to adoption and getting to your desired outputs is required. Whilst technology is a crucial part of this, it's really important for us to focus on people and processes and ensuring that that continuous adoption is a reality in your organization. And having a guide to show you the way around, working on your screen, being a navigator with you as you use JDE Edwards is a great way to bring your adoption as a user and allowing others to embrace the innovations that Oracle bring out every quarter. As a company, we're committed to providing solutions that not only enhance your user adoption, but also proactively raise awareness of these new features. And that's why I'm particularly excited about Oracle Guided Learning for JDE Edwards. OGL for JDE, that's Oracle Guided Learning for JDE Edwards, represents that shift, that change of training away from getting trained once and expecting your users to know it and for that knowledge to last, to a way that allows continuous training with a guided approach. OGL for JDE Edwards has been developed in collaboration with Steltix, Oracle University, and the development team for JDE in Denver. It's built upon our Oracle Digital Adoption Program, which is used by 8 million users, and it's been tested on 40 different applications. It's my pleasure to hand over to Adam from the Oracle University, and he's going to be discussing how Oracle's guided learning can help you support your business goals.
Alan, thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. I'm Adam Tanner. I'm a Senior Director here at Oracle, and I'm responsible for guided learning here in the UK, Ireland and Israel region. I'm delighted to be here today. I must say thank you to our partner Steltix for the very kind invitation to speak. Steltix are recognised by Oracle as the leading partner with specialisation in guided learning on JDE. And if we can go on to the next slide, I'll give a bit more context to the relationship. So as you've heard from Alan just a moment ago, Steltix has worked with Oracle University and product development to integrate guided learning into JDE, creating OGL for JDE. We have worked with Steltix, who've developed navigation guides, which you've heard a little bit about today already, which help companies and users to benefit from guided learning and JDE from day one. Steltix resells, trains, installs, and gives ongoing support. And Steltix works very closely with Oracle from the start and on an ongoing basis to understand our roadmaps and our plans. So we are totally locked in together with Steltix, and we value the partnership that we have developed with them. Next slide, please. So if we look at the problems we're solving with an adoption platform, I want to take a minute just to explain how guided learning can help resolve those problems. And those problems are many and varied, and some of them have been touched on today already. Applications, people, policy, and process are in a constant state of change in organizations today. Even though a product or an application deployment can go well, as you'll see on the slide, that just tells a part of the story. Actual adoption and efficient use are constantly challenged as people have to learn new versions of software or new applications, new formats, new approaches, and the list really goes on and on. As people try to understand and adopt, they can sometimes feel overwhelmed with information and different inputs, and this can lead to inconsistency and perhaps poor use and poor realization of value. If we go on to the next slide, you will see that, as you've heard a couple of times today, Oracle Guided Learning provides a simple, scalable, and personalized experience to connect business and users together, resulting in a much better user experience, better productivity, faster return on investment, and reduced costs. If we go on to the next slide, you will see on the right-hand side some statistics. Now we absolutely know from our customers that guided learning delivers customer success. We know that an independent review of guided learning customers by IDC, this is the right side of the slide, by IDC has shown empirical evidence of reduced support tickets, faster understanding of new applications, better adoption, and a very, very swift return on investment. You can also see a direct quote from Fulton Hogan on the benefits that they see from guided learning on JDE. And I really should add that only 2 weeks ago in the UK, we hosted the 4th annual Guided Learning Forum, and we had 100 customers come and talk about the huge value that they're getting from guided learning each and every day. So we have a good reference base. We have customers that are really getting value from using guided learning on their applications. So OGL for JDE is not just for JDE. It's an enterprise adoption platform that can be used with JDE and many, many of your web-based applications. The license that you buy for JDE entitles you to use guided learning on JDE and 2 more additional non-Oracle applications, provided they're HTML5 and above, provided they're validated. In addition, guided learning supports the entire Fusion suite, HCM, ERP, EPM, and CX. So you really have a great flexibility to use guided learning on different devices, on different applications, and to deliver value to you on an ongoing basis. It's been my pleasure to speak today. I only had a few minutes, and I'm keen that I pass over to the next speaker, who's going to give you a demonstration. Thank you.
That's me, everyone. Hi, Daniel Smith from Steltix, Product Director for Oracle Guided Learning. So I'm going to take us through a demonstration. I'll just start off with some positioning slides and we'll go from there. So for those of you who haven't seen OGL for JDE before, it is natively, the work that we did with Oracle was to make it natively integrated within JDE. So what does that mean? As a JDE end user, you are presented with OGL for JDE within the application. It is aware of the security, it is aware of your roles, it is aware of the applications you're running, P42, 10, et cetera. So it's acutely aware and integrated into your environment, which gives us a lot of capability, which I'll showcase shortly. So I'll start off by demonstrating the end user experience. I'm then going to go through my personal favorite part of OGL, which is the analytics and insight it gives you into your training adoption of the JDE application. So never before as a JDE user have you been able to see who's consuming what training material, their feedback, where are they getting stuck, what challenges are they having, etc. And I'll take you through some of the content creation and the content management. So things like how Oracle have embedded some of their AI capability into the platform to automate the generation of messages. Things like how we can automatically translate from one language to many languages just through the recording of a simple one-time process guide. So I'm now going to jump into JDE. Obviously being JDE aware, this is a demonstration JDE environment. So what is OGL for JDE? So this little widget on the right-hand side, once you purchase the subscription, we configure that and it's enabled within your JDE environment. We can support multiple environments, etc. Once exposed, that basically surfaces up the training material, process guides, onboarding information, messages, and a whole lot of other capability, which I'll run you through some use cases shortly. The first one I'll touch on, so I'm going to play a few different personas today, and bear with me as I do this demonstration. It would present itself differently in the real world, but fortunately it's approaching month end, and what we can use OGL for, and this is literally, you can go live with this in minutes once you've turned the subscription on, configured the JDE environment. It has a messaging capability, so you can use OGL for JDE to broadcast to your end users, either an individual by role, so the supply chain team, your finance team, your HR team, or to everyone. And it's actually quite smart in terms of how it understands time-based conditions. So as you can see, the message in front of me is basically saying it's month end is approaching. It is actually month end, so we can configure this to be month end -5, send out a reminder once, send it out repeatedly. Basically what we're doing here is asking people to ensure that they've got their month-end transactions in order. So everything from purchase order receipts through to sales update. And we can embed things like hyperlinks into the finance team, which can contact them directly. So it's just one example of a feature that you can activate literally within minutes of activating the subscription. They take not long at all to deploy to your environment. I'll show you how we can use AI later to generate some of those messages. Now, the next feature or next use case I'm going to show is potentially I'm a new user to your organization. So I've joined your organization, I've joined the purchasing team, I've had my 10 minutes handover of how to enter a purchase order in JDE, and I've been given the keys to the production environment. I'm presented with this E1 page. I think I know what I'm doing, so I'm going to try and enter a purchase order in JDE. So sounds pretty straightforward, but there are a lot of business rules and potentially context that comes with purchasing. So preferred suppliers, purchasing levels in terms of discount breaks, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm feeling confident, so I'm going to get started. I'll click on the button that says enter stock purchase order, which looked like a good place to start. Now, what OGL has actually done here is it's prompted and preempted that I might be struggling a little bit. And again, bear with me because it is a demo. I've sort of condensed that delay there, but it is able to sense people's hesitation within the application and present a tip to say, would you like some help with entering this purchase order? And me on day one, I don't want to embarrass my manager, so I want to say yes, because I want to do this transaction properly. What that does is it actually triggers, to the GPS analogy, some guardrails to coach or guide me through a particular transaction. Now, again, this is in your production environment, so this is real data that I'm entering, but I can't do anything but follow the OGL lead, which in this instance is to press the add button. Now it's presenting, I'm sure you're all aware of this, the purchase order header for JDE. So it's giving me some additional business context. So this is, again, configurable, can be applied across data dictionary items, but gives you the ability to add your business language, your terminology, your taxonomy to a particular field or business process policies. For this example here, it's a supplier. So it's saying, this is a supplier that represents the organization that you're purchasing the goods from, obviously. And you can see over here, we've activated another little feature, smart tip, which is, again, I might be new, I might be wanting to onboard a supplier, I can't find my supplier, where do I go to for help? So this is giving me directions as to, perhaps you need to speak to the supplier onboarding team. I'm just going to enter some demo data to progress the guide and step us through a couple of the other features. Now, this is a very basic one that we're showing here, but I'll ratchet up the capabilities as we get into the demonstration. Okay, I'm going to enter my branch plant next. Now it's going to take me to, again, I can't click anywhere except for that purchase order header, at which point in time, for those of you of the JDE aware, you go from the header down to the detail. I can enter one or many rows here, which is the inventory items or stock items that I plan to purchase. Now, for the purposes of the demonstration, I'll actually finish the process there for a couple of reasons. One, to save a little bit of time, but also to show you a couple other features that we have within OGL. So at a guide level, we can activate feedback. So if you're testing some guides, if you've got some new material that you're pushing out and you want to gather some feedback, you have the ability for users to enter some text and provide a rating. There's some options here, 1 star through to 5 star, happy smiley faces. And that's actually captured in the analytics, which is incredibly powerful when you're prototyping potentially new functionality or wanting to get some feedback from the end users. So I can submit some feedback. The other thing it's going to do behind the scenes there is track that it acknowledges and recognizes that I was only halfway through that business process and I dropped off. That's actually quite a useful thing to track in any organization because you want to know whether your users are completing the training material or they're dropping off at a particular point in time. And if so, what might that issue be? So I'll go back to my E1 page. So I've got a little bit of courage now. I've successfully entered my first purchase order with the help of OGL for JDE. What I've shown you there is sort of like the proactive help. Now, there's also the ability to go searching for help. I'm just going to run that same guide, and this is really the core of OGL for JDE. So what I just showed you then was I was in the application, it asked me for help, but I also have the ability to go and surface up any of the training material or process policy material that I've got within the environment. So with this one guide, I can link it. It's actually going to start at the very beginning now, because before, if you recall, I had a little bit of courage and I got halfway through the transaction. Then I needed some help. What I'm doing here is saying, well, actually, I don't know what I'm doing. Please step me through the process end to end. Now, with any procurement implementation, there's typically a procurement policy, which will be a PDF or a link to a SharePoint, whatever the case may be. So we can surface the policy information within the actual context of the transaction that we're entering. There's also the ability to download a PDF guide as well, which is what we're showing there. So this is going to take me through that same transaction, albeit starting at the beginning. And once I get to this point, this is essentially where OGL took over previously. So I suppose the key point there is you can have reactive assistance. You can go search for it yourself. It doesn't matter where you are within that business process. It's going to kick in at the right point in time to coach you through that particular transaction. So I'm just going to close back there as well. Another couple of little features which are very handy. So we know with JDE, we're releasing new functionality all the time, to Alan's comment about continuous delivery. So things like notifications, orchestrations, widgets, etc., are being pushed out. This little beacon up the top here, or this flashing icon, we can draw users' attention to new features that we've deployed. Again, can be time-based, can be linked to a video that really just say, hey, this is a new feature we've just deployed as part of our R26 upgrade. This is probably something that you want to familiarize yourself with. Again, a nice little feature to deploy to via OGL for JDE. The next use case I'm going to show is using OGL for JDE in the context of one of the solving a problem that a lot of organizations had around master data management. So master data, particularly if you're a product-centric organization, has significant ramifications if you do not set it up correctly. And a lot of times that information or that knowledge is in individuals' heads. It's not captured within the business process or the policies within the actual application itself. So this time I'm going to take one hat off being the new purchasing person, and I'm going to put another hat on being the administration, the master data manager for business units. I'm going to create a new business unit. Now that may sound simple in its own right, but those of you that are JDE aware, you know there's different types of business units which have different implications as to what part of the business that we're talking about, whether it's a branch plant for distribution, stocking locations, whether it's a financial business unit, whether it's a manufacturing business unit, etc. So again, OGL is just going to step me through the transaction. I'm going to be a little bit naughty and use the fast path, and it's going to take me to that, that application. I might just, apologies, I'll just start that one again. The joys of doing a live demo. So with this scenario, I want to show you some of the conditional branching that we have, as well as some of the in-application validation that we have. So if it's just going to play ball. Otherwise, I'll come back to that and we'll jump across to the analytics. Okay, now here we go. So just bear with me a second as we get into the actual application. All right, so it's going to ask me to add a new business unit. I can't click anywhere but that button again. So the guardrails are pretty well enforced. All right, so at this point in time, it's going to present me with that branching that I alluded to. So again, different types of business units have different types of setup requirements, different context, and different downstream implications. I'm particularly interested in entering a branch plant. I'm setting up a new stocking location, distribution center, whatever the case may be. So now what OGL is going to do is going to talk to me in language that is very specific, or not just language, but the configuration considerations that are very specific to branch plants. So what we can also do is we can overlay some validation of the input. So for any of you who have struggled to enforce, standardization with your master data, OGL will enforce rules such that if I entered a character or a length that was not consistent with what it's asking me to enter, so 2 alphanumerics followed by 3 numbers, it won't let me progress this until I've got it to a position where it is actually in the correct format. Again, there's no coding that goes into that. That's just using OGL to validate data at the point of time of data entry, as opposed to finding out about it later when it hits, for example, sales update. So it's going to step me through UK test DC. I'm just going to enter some information here, just to step through the actual transaction, just to progress to the next set of features. So repeat tab. Okay. Leave that field blank. All right. So now it's going to take me to category codes 1 through 10. The other thing is I've enforced some rules that says I have to actually enter some minimum set of data before I can commit this transaction. So if you've got fields that you deem to be mandatory for a particular master data item, then you can use OGL to enforce those rules by saying you have to enter these additional information. So cat codes 1 and 10. So it knows it's a branch plant. It knows that only category code 1 and 2 are relevant for branch plants. So it's only showing me those 2 category codes. So I've gotten rid of all the noise. I've gotten rid of all the stuff and the clutter. All right, so I'm going to enter a division. Oh, sorry, before I do that, I'll just, the way that we've configured OGL again here is I have to enter a division before I enter a region. So again, you can have dependencies within your category codes that you can have it in a sequence order that OGL can help you enforce, which is good again for data accuracy and validation. Okay, so I'm just going to choose the corporate division. Once I've entered that, it's now opened up that field and I can enter the region. And I've got another smart tip over here, which is basically saying, it's giving me some pointers and basically saying regions are for reporting purposes. And by the way, don't use value 240 Central North America because even though it's a UDC there, you can select it. We're in the process of decommissioning that. So again, providing that additional context. So I always choose Australia, but I'll choose something different today. So we'll go 230. At which point in time I can now press the OK button. So what you've seen there is a number of features from branching to give you a very specific training material. I chose a branch plant. It's then enforced some validation on the branch plant number that I entered. It's then gone and done the dependencies of the category codes, only surfaced the category codes relevant to me and only allowed me to close that particular application, commit that particular transaction once I've completed all the minimum data set requirements. Okay, and I got some feedback on that one, which I won't dwell on. In terms of the other features, just with the fullness of time, there's a lot we could go through. We do surveys, we do videos, we've got our pre-built content. So with a Steltix implementation, we've got over 250 process guides that we roll out. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff that we can include there as well. Very strong searching capability. So I want to try and find some information around fixed assets, for example. It has some, I suppose, fuzzy logic associated to it to return things associated to fixed assets. You see there's no fixed asset in that particular process guide, but I can see that it's returned that information regardless. Just go back to my purchasing guide here. I ran it within the application. You can also watch a step guide. So step guide is like a dockable, on a second screen summary of the transaction from end to end, which can be generated to PDF, which can be emailed to someone in a support desk context. Very useful. You can just email this and say, hey, this is how you enter a particular purchase order, or this is how you enter a stock purchase order. And you can also see a video of it as well. So by recording the process once, it generates the actual process as I showed in the application, the step guide, as well as the video. So you can record once and execute multiple times. The last thing I'll show, well, the second to last thing I'll show in the application, because I'll show you the multilingual capability, is one of the classic use cases for OGL for JDE, and probably the most powerful, is the onboarding process. So many organizations struggle with managing, enforcing, and delivering the onboarding experience for new users to the enterprise, whether it's JDE Edwards or otherwise. For this one, we've configured a onboarding guide, which basically says, look, you have just joined the purchasing team. I was that gentleman with that first transaction. I've now done the onboarding after I've tried to enter a purchase order, but it's going to step me through. You probably should be familiar with our organization's corporate policy. So nothing to do with the procurement policy, but this is how Steltix governs itself and enforces our policies globally. Here's our CEO potentially talking to us about welcome to the organization. We've just embedded a Steltix video, but you can embed media content there. And it's going to give me just a general navigation on JDE. And then we're touching on some of Steltix's IP here in terms of our pre-built content. So it's talking to me as a purchasing person because it knows my role. So it's talking about the purchasing E1 page. It's also going to ask me to step through a series of tasks to familiarize myself with everything from basic navigation through to entering a purchase order, receiving a purchase order, printing a purchase order. And it's also going to provide a test or a quiz at the end of it, which is a test to see if I have understood and can communicate that I've understood and can take on board what's been trained, and therefore this would be a precursor to potentially getting access to a production environment if this was run in non-prod. So it's just going to launch the onboarding task list, and I have to step through each of these. This is tracked within the analytics, and then I can do the survey at the end and either pass or fail that. So basic navigation is a real simple one. You can see I've already done this one before, but if I just step through that, it's going to orientate me around JD Edwards. Again, all the things that people may know what they do, they may not. This is some of our pre-built content. It's stepping us through what does the search do, how to use it, what does that little arrow underneath my name do, why would I go here to access the orchestration recording process, to look at your content, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one guide and it would be marked as done, and then I would move on to the next one from that point onwards. I'll just close that. The final feature I will show is we have an exceptionally strong, a lot stronger than JDE, multilingual capability within OGL for JDE. So again, it's integrated into JDE, so it does pick up your default language. I've just changed it to French. That same guide that I ran before, I haven't recorded it in French. It's been recorded in English, and it's automatically translated it to French. So that's sort of cool thing number one. Cool thing number two is OGL will now talk to me in French. So the actual feedback, which should pop up, will actually be in French, and the whole search and experience is in French as well. I'll show you that in the back end when we get into the console. All right, so without further ado, I'll jump onto the console. So OGL being a SaaS-based application, it is essentially a secure website, multi-factor authenticated, that you need to authenticate to access. This is configured or connected to the JDE environment or environments that I was just running in. What I'm going to show you first of all is some of the reporting insight capability that we have. So every interaction with OGL within your application is not recorded, is tracked, and it is reportable on. So this is sort of a summary dashboard which shows us within your environment how many users have been active, what's the engagement level, how many guides have been run, what's the average feedback of your guides. And I can do that across a day, a week, a month, a year, or an indeterminate time period. So this is essentially all my guide history, my feedback, and I can drill into a particular guide, which I will just wake the system up again because it was asleep whilst I was doing the other bits and pieces. Might come back to that in a second, but I can drill into that underlying guide, and then I can get very specific information around that particular guide, who's running the create purchase order, how are they getting through it, what are they dropping off point, and all those bits and pieces that I alluded to earlier. So not playing ball with me at the moment, but that's okay. I'll come back to it. Feedback. So we can capture all the feedback within the system, as mentioned before. So this is an aggregation of all the feedback of all the guides, 1 through 5-star rating. I've got an average feedback of 4.5. I've got 25-star ratings. I can quickly drill into these and look at perhaps, why have I got a 1-star rating? So that user has given this guide some feedback and has actually captured some information in relation to what the actual issue was. And you can see that aggregated across all the star ratings. So again, very useful feedback. The search terms is another very powerful feature. So I searched for fixed before and returned the asset-related information. Every time someone searches for anything within OGL over here, the console's tracking that. So this is actually available on our demo.steltix.com, which is a pretty famous website which hundreds and if not thousands of people use. So we can't control what they're searching for. Ergo, you might see some funny things in here. But here's people what they're searching for. Here's what's returning a result. So when I entered fixed, it returned a result. Here's something that's not returning a result. So over here, someone's searching for minions, which is trending in our demo environment. I don't know why, but it's not obviously not returning any training material for minions. P4310 is probably a better example. So that's obviously purchase order entry. We probably want to associate the training guides for purchasing to P4310, and that would return a positive result. So you can get that sort of continued feedback and start to enhance what's happening in that particular environment. All right, so back to the, so I was at the aggregate level there, and I've just drilled through to the create purchase order. So at a guide level, I can see who's run it. You can see me at the top, how much time they've spent within the application or within the training guide, where are they dropping throughout the process in terms of the time, how complete are they getting through it? Remember, I got sort of 2/3 the way through it. What's the feedback and sort of other analysis and data as well. And then you can see who and when is running that particular guide. Very, very powerful when you deploy new functionality and the like. Okay, I'm going to keep moving. I'm going on to the third pillar of, so I showed you the end user experience. I've just showed you the reporting and analytics. Now I'm going to jump into the content and just talk a little bit about content management, content creation, and how we can do things like multilingual and some of the AI capability. So again, the content is administered and edited within the console. It's connected to your JDE environment. So each one of these is a discrete process guide or a discrete message. You can see on the right-hand side, you can group your guides by product. So we quite often have JDE Edwards with Workday, JDE Edwards with Salesforce, JDE Edwards with ServiceNow. So you can group it. It's aware of your JDE modules. So if I drill into my procurement module, I only want to look at my procurement content. We can see our old friend here, create purchase order stock. And then I can start to edit it or manage it in terms of publishing it to an environment, potentially making changes to it, publishing it to a new language. So this is the guide that we'll look at. OGL for JDE has exceptionally strong version history. So this guide has been tweaked. We're up to version 58 of it. So you can restore and preview anywhere within that lineage the training material that you've deployed to your environment. So very good for organizations that have a compliance-related requirement to track and audit their training material. So I could restore to a certain date, but every time I save this, essentially it's creating a version and keeping it there for perpetuity. If I wanted to make some quick changes to that particular guide, I could. I'm just going to jump into the content editor. If I wanted to perhaps just make it a quick change to some of the text, perhaps, I could do that very easy. I can collaborate with other content developers and tag them. They can contribute. I can, just do some basic changes to the published guide from within here. There's also a mass update feature. So if you wanted to change a word across multiple guides, you could do that. There's a number of other features here around activation. So we might want to have some conditions, so time-based. So remember that message at the beginning, I wanted to only display at 5 days prior to month end. We have quite a sophisticated activation capability based on either time, whether we're using a particular application. So it could see P4210. It can say, well, if you're in this particular version of P4210, then display this training material. So it's quite powerful in terms of what we can do with the activation conditions. All right, don't save. Okay, rattling through here, and I'll just jump into the languages or the translation feature. So very powerful translation capabilities. So pretty much with the click of a button, it is just a click of a button, I can select the languages that I would like it to translate to this guide. These are the ones on the right-hand side I've already translated to, but let's just pick one at random, check. I would simply save and exit that. It would then go away and generate that process guide to the create stock purchase order in Czech, and then I would be able to publish that. And if a user had a preference or a default language of Czech, they would get that guide in the Czech language. It literally takes under a minute to do that translation. It uses some of the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure translation service behind the scenes. Okay, I won't save that. What have I missed? All the languages are available here as well. You can review the content. I'll just touch on some of the AI capability that Oracle have added to the application. of which they've had a number of, I suppose, iterations with the quarterly updates that they've had. I'll just touch on one of the, I suppose, the basic ones. So at the beginning, I showed you that message, which was month end is approaching. This is where you create the different content types. So with the process guides was the actual stepping through the actual process guide. The smart tip was those little question marks that displayed information. The message was the actual message that presented itself at the beginning. And I haven't showed you a lot of the other stuff as well, like surveys as well. But if we wanted to do a message, Oracle have embedded their, I suppose, their AI assistant such that it can auto-generate messages using generative AI technology. I'm going to cheat slightly because I cannot type this in without making lots of mistakes. But you can use this basically to create pro forma messages that you would then publish to your organization. And these messages literally take minutes to publish. So I've just said, create an announcement about the upcoming JDE Edwards R26 UAT phase starting on the 1st of the 1st, I'm pretty mean, New Year's Day, and going for 3 weeks. So pretty much all I'd have to do is press that button. Depending on whether Mr. AI is awake or not, he will come back and give me a pro forma message that I can then say create, and that will create that message within OGL that I can then publish to end users. Obviously, I'd want to curate it a little bit, possibly, depending on how accurate and how useful it is. And then I've just published a message within a matter of minutes, which has only really come from me with that little simple phrase there. So it's just taken a little while to render, but this is not far away. They've also just recently released with the 26A release, which is, so again, different to JDE Edwards parlance, but SaaS has a quarterly release cycle. They've just released this capability with the actual content editor as well, so you can create content using generative AI, which is actually quite powerful. So it's, wouldn't say it's setting the world on fire from a speed perspective, but it is populating that text. I'll just go create then and actually create the message that I could then publish to my end users. Again, everyone, a user or star public. So down to a particular role. All right, I showed you the end user experience. We just scratched the surface of the process guides, the messages, the smart tips, the beacons, the onboarding capability. I just touched on some of the Steltix pre-built content. There's lots more goodies to be had in there for JDE users. The master data management one is a classic use case. I took you through the business insights, which was sort of the analytics. So starting at the aggregate level and then drilling into a particular process guide, showing some of the search features, etc. Some of the feedback, which is very useful. And then I quickly touched on content management, content editing, and some of the AI capability, as well as some of the multilingual capability that we have. This is just a screenshot of what I mentioned before. It's only just been released. So this is the actual OGL editor, and they've embedded. So before I was creating a message, this is the actual process guide editor itself. They've embedded the AI assistant within release 26A, which is currently being rolled out. So you can basically just use prompts to generate content and then take screenshots and away you go. So it's just further streamlining the content creation process, which is, if you've used UPK historically, it's about 152 times quicker than developing UPK content. So, all right. So we've touched on OGL for JDE. You heard at the beginning that with the license, you have an entitlement to run it across a couple of other applications as well. So we can run it across our mobile application. We have the ability to run OGL for JDE on multiple devices, multiple form factors, including our app share solution, which is the mobility platform or an alternate user interface for JDE. We've got lots of customer testimonials. So I think that the thing for JDE customers to be aware of is that this is used by small, medium and large organizations. So Fulton Hogan, Alicia, I personally ran this implementation with her, a very big advocate. They've got a re-implementation of 9.2, and essentially they couldn't have done it without OGL for JDE. 15,000 employees rolling out Greenfield's JDE. The traditional methods of training and delivery of training was not going to work. We've got organisations such as Ignico in Canada, again, 12,000 employees are rolling out OGL for JDE, through to organisations which only have 100 people, but they have strong policy and governance that they want to enforce with OGL for JDE. So where would you use OGL for JDE? And really, it depends on where you're at with your life cycle of your implementation. So we have organisations that are rolling out JDE greenfields. So before JDE is provisioned, they'll have access to our pre-built content. They can start to train their project team. They can see what standard JDE looks like from day one or day -1. So as part of the design phase, a lot of organisations will leverage OGL for JDE if they're doing an upgrade, either a tools upgrade or an apps upgrade. So that configure UAT stage is really good. Obviously, as a rollout, as you deploy into end users, net change training and the like, and then ongoing support. So being able to have your help desk distribute and share process guides through email, through messaging, etc., is really useful for the ongoing support of the actual application. So some of the features is natively integrated. So that's the work we did with both Oracle University and the JDE Edwards product development team. So there's literally, it takes under an hour to get OGL for JDE up and running in your environment. There's some soft coding in JDE. There's an application ID, which is a unique identifier within OGL. You basically point the two together and the widget will appear for the predetermined set of users that you would want. Again, role-based, start public user. It's not just JDE standard objects. It works on your P55, P56 objects, orchestrator. You can configure it as well. And you have an entitlement to other applications. So that cannot be understated how useful that is, particularly if you've got applications that span business processes. So they might start in JDE or might start in a CRM application and end up in JDE. You can use OGL to do cross-platform guides. So start in one application, end up in another application, one training guide, one application that you're actually surfacing to the end users. And I think as Stuart touched on in the beginning, we help organizations who are currently paying for UPK support to essentially remove that from their ongoing annual support fee and redirect those funds to the purchase of OGL for JDE. We have also developed a UPK content migration. So if you've got ODAC files or UPK content, we can migrate that through to OGL for JDE to fast track the, I suppose, the deployment of OGL. A bunch of pre-built content. So there's literally 270 guides we've developed across the core modules in JDE, and that's ever expanding to some of the, I suppose, transportation, those bits and pieces, which not everyone has. We position them as accelerators for your implementation. So you take the common foundation, you take the financial management, you update your E1 pages, you update your navigation paths, you add your context, and away you go. And Stuart, if I'm not mistaken, that is the content I had planned to cover off.
Yeah, so you can take a breath, Dan, but maybe just for a short while, because there are a couple of questions that came in. So if anybody's got any other questions that they want to raise, there we go. We've got Steve's put one in the chat for us as well. So the first couple that you briefly touched on was whether guided learning works on mobile devices.
Yes, I mean the caveat there is that they have to be HTML5, not applications, that are not web-based. So it is a web-based application. So yeah, the answer to that is yes. And I briefly showed you there running on our mobile device, but yes. Fantastic.
No, good. There's a very specific one. If I've got a cloned version of a standard process, e.g. P554312 from P4312, is it possible to copy that standard guide, or do you need to build a brand new guide from scratch?
I don't see any reason why you couldn't copy. That's obviously purchase order receipt. So yeah, you could take our standard purchase order receipt, copy it to the clone one, and away you go, right? Yep. You just have to rehook it to be 5 times faster than starting from scratch. So
great stuff. Okay, thank you. Another question is about time and value to roll out. So, what kind of typical timelines for implementing guided learning, and how quickly can we see a value from that?
Well, I'll defer to the Oracle team, the CSS team, in terms of the general statement, but I can give you my experience with the implementations that we've done. So people go into these things thinking that they've got to re-implement all of their training guides they've ever invented, and there's 300 of those, and it's going to take 9 months to do that, right? So what we advocate for is to, go after some low-hanging fruit. So the messages, the beacons, and all those bits of the smart tips, they literally take minutes to deploy. So purchase a subscription, configure the environment, get some training, and you can start leveraging that functionality straight away. So the time to value in that scenario is probably 2 weeks, a week and a half, depending on how fast you want to move. Then what we do is we migrate from UPK or tailor our pre-built content to your specific process guides. We do that in a sort of priority-based fashion. So a guide might take 2 hours to create or 2 hours to migrate. If you've got 100 guides, then that might take elapsed time 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. But you're iteratively pushing them out as you go, right? So you're not waiting to the end of that. You're pushing out purchase order entry. You're pushing out purchase order approval. That list grows and grows and grows and grows. So long-winded way of saying probably minimum 2 weeks, maximum sort of 6 weeks, depending on the quantum and size of your organization. But I don't know if the Oracle team have got sort of a bit more of a holistic answer to that, but that's just definitely from a JDE Edwards standpoint perspective.
Yeah, happy to jump in for a second. I think that was a great answer, Dan. Ultimately, the key is to focus on the areas that matter initially, not try to go for everything at the same time. And you're quite right. Within a week to 2 weeks, it's very realistic that you could deploy guided learning across an application and start to deliver real value. What's interesting is that you can then go a stage further and you can add iterative updates to the adoption platform quite easily, quite quickly, and some of those can be done in a matter of minutes. So, it is absolutely the case where we can deploy messages or beacons or smart tips in literally a matter of minutes and deploy across the estate. So a great answer from you though, Dan. Within a week to 2 weeks, you can be seeing the value from guided learning.
Fantastic, thank you. We've got about 5 minutes left. I think there's a couple more questions. One from Paddy that we've got a great demo, Dan, thanks. How does the pricing model for the tool work? So I guess that's the $1 million question everybody wants to know. So yeah.
It's not $1 million. So I'll give you the metric. So
Good.
So essentially the way the licensing work is either by named user. So you've got JDE named users. It does depend on your licensing metric for JDE, but most often it's a named user. So you got 100 named users of JDE. We would use that as a basis for licensing OGL. That's one option. There's also an employee metric. So the total number of employees in your organization. There is a different, I suppose, factoring on those two different metrics. So we look at the optimal one for you. So for example, if you've got 100 named users and 110 employees, then the employee metric is going to be better than named user. But if you've got 100 named users and 7,000 employees, then the named user one's going to be better because there's a factoring that goes into play there, right? So that's essentially it for the OGL solution from Oracle. We resell that. Then the other thing to consider is the pre-built content. 99% of our clients will take the pre-built content because they see value in that. And that's pretty much it.
Fantastic.
I think just to add to that, if I can, again, a great answer, Dan, but the license also includes an ability to cover 2 additional products. So as well as JDE, you could use it on SharePoint or Apex or some other HTML5 application as well. So in terms of value, we see time and again with our customers really good return on investment and really good use of guided learning across applications, including JDE. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Adam. The last one I had really was that you mentioned the Steltix demo environment. So is guided learning actually enabled in the demo environment? Can people go and have a play and have a look there? So
it is. I would say obviously we've got some IP to protect, but it's a very cut down version of the widget's enabled, and you can sort of have a little just a general navigation, but we're obviously not wanting to give too much of the special sauce away. So
sure, but you can get a good feel and a good appreciation from using guided learning and how it works, and by navigating to that environment. That'd be great. Fantastic. Okay. So yeah, where to find out more information, do feel free to reach out with any other questions, or we can book a one-to-one demo. We can talk to you about the UPK and the exit plan, those types of things, and obviously we can work with you on pricing and potentially how to implement this with your organisation. So more than happy for you to reach out through any of those channels, really, via ourselves or Oracle. And there's obviously the guided learning website as well. So there's some information there. On behalf of Steltix and Oracle, I really want to say, thank you very much for partnering with us, and particularly Dan, thank you very much for the presenting today. So you can have a break and give your voice a bit of a rest now for what remains of your day. And a big thank you to everybody for joining. So we will send out the recording, we'll send out the slides and any sort of next step links as well to follow up. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Stuart.